loved, and he'd done no wrong to anybody. The truth of his position as a slave gripped him with a chilling horror. It made him feel swallowed by a nasty, horrific monster. He was now inside its belly, becoming the flesh of the monster, little by little. What of his future? What of his family? What of this pain and torture, this captivity, giving his life to Mr. Fairworthy? Ajima knew he would never save pennies, years and years from the sale of his garden vegetables to buy his freedom. That freedom was already his very own. He decided he would never try to buy his freedom back, as a few people actually did. How then would he get out of his enslavement? How? In a contrary way, Ajima was not at all bitter about his work itself. He'd given himself to his leather work. He loved the joy of handling, shaping, and using skin. And his work in leather had improved to a quality he would never have imagined. Also, he quietly enjoyed picking up and learning his plantation English from Felix and others. But his sense of abuse churned him up whenever he was made to go and work in the boiling house or the wagon-making workshop. Then, always, he knew, he must swallow the extra offense. He must cover up the hammering of his wounds, and he knew that to everybody, he appeared to be settling. For him, everything he did in all this new world business attacked him as a person, attacked him as a way of life, and he was expected to swallow it. But as far as he was concerned, all was only temporary. Only temporary. He merely needed more time to learn and to plan. He needed time to find good, reliable, committed connections. The busy round of seasons kept on. It kept on, whether it was the making and looking after estate equipment, planting, weeding, or reaping sugarcane, or boiling sugar. One demanding time followed another. With all this life of hustle and urgency going on, relaxing time between work and bedtime was short. But Ajima turned this little time into his sweet relief of the day. In this soft early darkness of night, alone, sitting on his log stool, his back against his wattled hut, Ajima kept in touch, remembering his family and home in Africa. Sometimes in the evening, Ajima would mourn the loss of his 8 children and their 2 mothers. He would endure the pain of separation from his children, not able to see them, be with them, or hear anything about them. And they too not knowing anything about him. He would think of the children in order of their ages. He would make a sad groaning sound for everyone, beginning with the first child, a daughter, then Atu, right down to his youngest, Efia, his daughter 2 years old. Then he would come back to his 4-year-old son, Kufuo, and grieve, especially on and on. Sometimes he merely remembered time with Kufuo. Last night, Ajima came straight to Kufuo. His feeling and imagination strong, Ajima saw Kufuo as if he were actually with him in their home in Africa. Grinning, he talked loudly in his African language. He said, "Man-child, who had me share your mother's birth pangs, have you another handful of red birds' feathers you collected up to give me? Saying it's all in your day's work? Eh, little lion? You don't have another handful. Well, the first handful is here, in the calabash, beside the pieces of snakeskin." He imagined picking up Kufuo and tickling him and enjoying his child chuckles. He whispered to himself, "Oh, I remember the smell of your breath. I remember your little hand in my big hand." Tonight, Ajima remembering laughing at Kufuo, and Kufuo not liking it, saying to him, "My father, you mustn't laugh at me. You mustn't laugh at me." He laughed at Kufuo because he wore coils of wisp around his little arm to imitate his father's amulet. "I only laugh," he said aloud, "because you amuse me. You amuse me because you're such a little man, such a little man." And Kufuo was pleased, and as he often did, Ajima settled down, lost in remembered situations and conversations with his son, remembering spoiling him, teaching him to use a spear, remembering them together trapping birds, setting their trap, then hiding, waiting in the wood, remembering singing together, and Kaful's child voice out of tune, remembering. Secretly, all the time, Ajima looked for somebody to link up breakaway plans with. Reliable connections had to be built, but getting to spot a rebellious, trustworthy soulmate proved to be a slow process. Mostly, slave people were crushed people. They lived to survive and not antagonize. They called for little favors. Ajima knew he had to be careful with whom he talked rebellion.